Okay, so does it work? It does. All right. So Linda wanted me to talk about positive attitude. And then I wondered the best way to do it. And then I decided that I would do what we do at Aspen and the Africa and the Africa Leadership Initiative, which is find a passage which we all can have a conversation about, a common passage. So I chose David and Bathsheba. So we will talk about this from a leadership perspective. It's a very famous passage, 2 Samuel chapter 11. And many people, when they see this, it really impacts them emotionally. I respect that. We will, however, be taking it, think about it from a leadership perspective. Okay. And then there'll be lots of questions from me, from you, lots of comments. And then we'll segue from that into the building, the how-to of the positive attitude. Now, it's not what you think. It's a little different. I'm experimenting with all kinds of academic things. As an associate professor, I can do this. I can experiment. So I've been experimenting with how to use what we call cognitive behavior therapy in ways outside of the clinic, because I am a clinical psychologist, but outside of the clinic, how do we use it to improve productivity? How do we use to improve leadership? So today, we're going to figure out how to use this kind of thinking to encourage a positive attitude. So that's what, so that, it's kind of like when you were writing your exams and they said you should write about the forest, but you had learnt about the agama lizard. So you then said, you know what, a forest has got trees, but inside the forest are agama lizards. So then you take off on that track. That's right. So that's what we're going to be doing. And then we will talk a lot more about building the positive attitude. So if you have a Bible on your phone, I would encourage you to open it and to 2 Samuel chapter 11. And we can start the conversation. Can I be reverent and ask you to read for us, since you are
here? David and Bathsheba, 2 Samuel 11. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. But David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanliness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David saying, "I am pregnant." So David sent this word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." And Joab sent him to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was doing, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going. Then David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." So Uriah left the palace and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrance to the palace with all his master's servants and did not go down to his house. David was told Uriah did not go home. So he asked Uriah, "Haven't you just come from a military campaign? Why didn't you go home?" Uriah said to David, "The ark and Israel and Judah are staying in the tents, and my commander Joab and my lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and make love to my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing." Then David said to him, "Stay here one more day, and tomorrow I will send you back." So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. David's invitation, he ate and drank with him, and David made him drunk. But in the evening, Uriah went out to sleep on his mat among his master's servants. He did not go home. In the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In it he wrote, "Put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest. Then withdraw from him, so he will be struck down and die." So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. When the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of the men in David's army fell. Moreover, Uriah the Hittite died. Joab sent David a full account of the battle.
So now let's talk. The room is very quiet. In the spring, when kings go to war, there's a time for war. There's a time for work. Who was David? Before this, what kind of leader was he? Who was David? Give us a brief synopsis of David.
He was the king of Israel.
He was. Any more?
I think that's about it.
That's about it. Thank you. Do you know anything about David? What kind of king was he?
David was the king of Israel.
Yes.
And he was the leader of the army.
He was. He was very much a general, wasn't he? What else do you know about David?
I think he was a respected leader.
He was very much a respected leader. Thank you. And now, when the story starts, where was David and why? Can you conjecture why he was there?
Well, actually, David was a skilled general. He was a fighter. And he was expected to lead. But this time, he decided to stay at home when he should have been fighting.
Precisely. He was. Why did he decide to stay at home? I mean, what do you think his reasons may have been?
I think that he thought he's maybe fought enough and have led enough, so it's time he let the other generals like Joab do the work.
Right. He might have thought he had a good team to support him, so it was okay, they could go into battle. We have a hands up there. Yes? Can you shout? Go ahead. Please go ahead. You. Mm-hmm. Yes, a skilled shepherd. Very good. So he had a line. You want to say something? Yes.
We could add that David was a kind of a rebel leader. He was a leader of a faction, the Judah faction of the group, and later he became king of Israel. So, yeah.
Yes, so he was an amazing general. He was a shepherd. He slew Goliath at a very early age. And he was, don't forget, he was the anointed of the Lord. But he did not become king because the man who sat on the throne was still king. And he, David, would not lift his hand against the anointed or the king. And so it took him quite a while to become king. So he was a good guy. He was a kind of CEO you would like to have if you were not a CEO yourself. But then the story starts, and he's there, he thinks he's got a team, they are doing what they should do, but as CEO, he can relax a bit. He was supposed to be at the war front. So, do you have times when you are not where you are supposed to be? As the CEO of your company, as the chief of your department, are there times when you should be there and you are not there? No judgment here. Just question. It is critical thinking time, after all. What happens when you are not there? Sometimes the being there or not there is not even physical presence. You've checked out psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, because you think your back is covered. And your back is covered. I mean, his back is covered. He's got Joab. They've won battles in his absence. But what about him? What has happened to him? Small, beautiful woman is bathing on her rooftop. Mighty crash for a king. So what does David do? Which lands him in trouble. What is this mighty crash which begins with just a small I sweet, body sweet. What does David do? Which lands him in trouble. Yes.
Yeah, he commits adultery.
He goes after somebody's wife. He can't even plead that he didn't know. He was told. And he went for somebody's wife. Right. How does he try to get out of trouble? The woman, what happens to the woman? Oh, she gets pregnant. Yes. And somebody's scratching his head though. Somebody's beginning to sweat. Oh. And how does he try to get out of trouble? He tries to cover up, mega cover up. And so he brings the woman's husband, who is a faithful general or colonel or brigadier from his army, tries to make him drunk. And the man speaks to him. The man says, how can I, when my people are at the front? And still, David is not getting it. He's not connecting with this faithful man. This man, probably a man of God, of a different tribe, of a different citizenship, Hittite, who rather is saying to you, the armies of God are in the field. What am I doing sleeping with my wife? My wife. He still is not connecting. Oh, he's checked out. He's checked out emotionally. He's checked out spiritually. So who does he sacrifice so that he doesn't get into trouble? Who does he sacrifice, Madam?
Uriah. Yeah.
Hi.
How are you?
So he sacrifices Uriah. And who have you ever sacrificed in your role as a leader? You can write it. Write it in the notes. If there is such a sacrifice you have made, Yehovah, write it. Okay. You see, there are some questions I'm just sort of skipping over because I know they are hard questions and I know that you may not be able to answer them. Now, what role Well, this one, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to say sanctioned relationship or unsanctioned relationships. I mean, relationships that are not, are not, we're not supposed to be in those kinds of relationships. Okay. So the question is, what role have those kinds of relationships played in your leadership journey? The Bathsheba types of relationships and the male Bathshebas. What shall we call them? Bathis? Bathsheba? Bahib. The Bahib Bathsheba relationships. Yes. What roles have those kinds of relationships played in your leadership journey? And who is your Bathsheba? Or what in your life is symbolized by Bathsheba? And what are the killers of confidence in this story? Imagine, a huge general. This is how low he stooped. Tell me, what do you think would kill his confidence in this kind of scenario that has happened to him? If you were him, what would make you feel like a man or a woman this small? What about this story?
I think the fact that someone has something that he can't access, and he thinks that he's a big man who can call all the shots, and he can't, this one thing he can have, but someone has. It kills his confidence.
Okay, so somebody's wife, that's somebody's wife, he can't have her. But after he's done the deed, he's had her, and now there are consequences. What kills his confidence? The shame, the guilt. Remember, this is a man after God's own heart. He is God's friend. That he would be found out, and the shame is killing him, the guilt is killing him, and they will kill his confidence, as they will kill us as leaders if we go this route. We sacrifice people. We do the wrong thing. We don't take the responsibility for it. We sacrifice people. It will kill our confidence. And when it does kill our confidence, what does it do to the people who follow us? The people who are working for us? What confidence will they have in us? And what attitudes will they have? How will they serve our company after that? Okay. But this is where we end the story. But the story in the Bible doesn't end like that. The Lord sends his prophet. Prophet says, the child will die. You've done something wrong. The child will die. David goes into a fast. He prays. He cries to the Lord. The child dies. He gets up. He shakes himself. He changes. He baths. He eats. Everyone is like, but the child is dead. You should be mourning. He says, no. The Lord has spoken. The Lord has shown his hand. We move on. And he continues to do what the Lord wants him to do. He's been restored before the Lord. So the question is, as leaders, we're likely to fall. We shouldn't. But if we do, we need to be restored. And the restoration, we should have the processes by which we restore ourselves, our relationships, our companies into good standing. Should always think like that. You get up, you fall, you get up, you rise. And so, how do you build the restorative systems for yourself, for your company, for the people who work with you? And what are the lessons you draw from this for your own leadership journey? Any brave people to tell us what the lessons are that they're drawing from this for your leadership journey? Yes.
So the whole time you were speaking, the main thing I was drawing out of David's moment was he gave in a swift moment of weakness. And so what I'm drawing out of it for my own leadership journey is sometimes be calm. Wait a little bit. What it looks like now may actually not be what it is. And if he had probably allowed himself to walk into his room and get away from the temptation, we wouldn't have this story. But then we wouldn't have Solomon as well. We needed Solomon.
You know, I always think when the Lord has a plan, he executes it. We don't need to go around in hoops like this. There may have been a Solomon. Irregardless, as we say.
Well, I want to say two things. In the first place, David fell out of place in the leadership ladder. He was the head of that department. He shouldn't have gone to see somebody's wife when there's business to do. So I don't have to put my business together with chasing people in my company. And the last thing is that I don't have to have a relation with my staff. Now I want to talk about restoration. When the prophet Nathan told him what he has done, he didn't push it away. He said, "It is me who have done that." And that person need to be killed. So he assumed responsibility. So whenever I go wrong, I'm a human being. I'm not perfect in anything, in everything. So when my attention is called into something that I maybe have done wrong, I should be able to, receive it and correct it and move on.
Thank you.
My lenses is David was self-centered. Secondly, David thought he was smart. So for the fact that he was the king of Israel, he can do whatever he thinks he have to. And for that matter, what I have learned is that we must always be appreciative of the little that we have. We need to be contentment. And also, we shouldn't borrow blindly. David borrowed blindly because when he saw Bathsheba, he did not have love for her. We begin to borrow blindly, we may be tempted to act unwisely. We may be acting ungodly too.
Thank you very much. These are deep nuggets.
Okay, so in this story, we realized that there was an abuse of power. David had power, and then he abused it. So I think what I can take from this is that irrespective of my status, I should always be fair to everyone, even my subordinates. Amen.
Amen to that. You must not abuse power. Yes.
Thank you. Anytime I see this story, I reflect on it, and I have a feeling possibly this was not the first time David was standing at the top. Possibly seeing Bathsheba bathing. Maybe once a while he has seen. He had a chance to run away from it. So the first thing I'm learning is that when I have the second chance to go away, I shouldn't say, oh, let me at least one more time check. Because I sometimes tie this also to when Lot was given a lot of alcohol so that the daughters who had babies with him. I also feel possibly there was a weakness of drinking with Lot, and the children exploited that. Possibly God was warning him, be careful with your drinks. So what I see is that sometimes when we have the second chance to escape, let's escape. Not let's say God is merciful, or as a leader, I can wave my way around it. What is wrong is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I just have a few. The question is, at the time when kings go to war,
I love that one.
and so it means that the chief executive had a responsibility which he ignored. And so when we are to play some roles and we don't play those roles, there are consequences. Then I think that perhaps this is a warning to those who are easily attracted to a lot of social media and the exposure to all kinds of things that can waste your time. Because the question is, what was he doing up there? You can see somebody bathing, but if you don't take a very close look, it will not have any effect. But it appears to me he probably paused, and then the Bible says he saw a beautiful. So the beauty was a progressive, manipulation of the brain to be able to see something more than what he was looking at. So I think we should be very careful as chief executives to be careful with what takes our attention and how it drives us away from our focus. That's what I want to share.
Thank you.
So that you can keep yours.
Very well. Very well. So, okay. So, I think when you go back, read it again and think about the questions and respond to them. Talk to yourself in the mirror. Answer each one by yourself. And see where it takes you. So I'm just going to segue into building some positive attitudes. Like I said, I've been experimenting with how to use cognitive behavior therapy in ways that are not clinical. But to build confidence, to build proper attitudes. Attitudes are sort of the way that you think, the way you configure your knowledge, so that when you look out into the world, you're interpreting your world. And it's that way of interpreting it that kind of sums up your attitude to the vibes that you give out there. That's what we're calling attitudes. Yesterday, I went to park, and there was this security woman, tall, beautiful security woman, and she was standing there like this. I said, "Good afternoon, madam." I said, "Is there space to park in there?" "It's far away." I said, "Okay, then I will just go and I'll find it." Then she said, "Wait." And right there, she had cordoned off some space. And I believe it was for some important people. But she let me park. And I was going to say, like I'm a bit lippy. I would have said, "But smile, you too, what's wrong with you? Just smile." I do that a lot. Eti, if you smile, what will happen? And I can say it in Tree and Ga. So, but then I didn't. I just said, "Oh, then let me go and find the faraway place." And she changed. She walked and gave me the space, even directed me into it. And I said a big thank you when I left. And so her attitude did not encourage me, but my attitude would have made it far worse for myself if it had been different. But with God's Holy Spirit prodding, I managed to get a very nice parking and walk a very short distance to my. So attitude is a lot of things. So my first issue here is there, I made this myself. I'm very proud of it. I call it HEPAC. That's the best I could do. I wasn't being very creative, but H for healthy thinking in a healthy body. That's the first thing, for building positive attitudes. The second is planning to succeed. And I won't go into that detail because I know in Stanford Seed, you've probably talked about vision, mission, objectives, and so on. So we won't do too much of that. Our emphasis will be on the healthy thinking. And then we'll talk about accountability and power. And some of you have already brought that up. David abused power. Because power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. So when you have power, everybody has power. That my young woman standing in that parking lot, she had a lot of power at that moment. You can abuse your power. And then the last thing is celebrating the milestones. You have to celebrate. And you'll see why. So very quickly, what is the link between the way you think and the way you feel? Because scientists now tell us that the way we think affects the way we feel. That it is the thinking that leads to the emotion. So you've got to check the thinking if you want to feel great. And if you want to have a positive attitude to life, you've got to check the thinking. So now we'll have a very short exercise. I want you to listen to your thoughts right now. Not everybody can listen or hear their thoughts, by the way. And if you can't, please raise your hand. I'll come and see if I can help you. But right now, just give yourself a minute. You've got a piece of paper and a pen, or you can write it in your phone. What are you thinking right now? Listen to your thoughts. Doesn't have to be anything deep, anything special. What's going on in your mind? Just write it down. Okay. Now write down the mood that you feel right now. How you feeling? How you feeling? Write down that mood that you're feeling. Okay. Then I want you to go back to yesterday. Go back to yesterday. And think, was there a time yesterday or the day before yesterday when you were feeling a certain way? Unhappy, frustrated, angry, sad? Just think about it. Let's go back. This time I'm asking you to feel first. What was the feeling at the time? Anything, just pick a mood. I haven't given the instruction well, I'm sorry. Pick a mood that you've experienced yesterday or the day before or this week. Just pick a mood. Any mood. Now, think back. What were you thinking at the time you were experiencing this mood? What were you thinking at the time when your mood turned? Okay. So, I just want you to think, to look at what you've written. Do you see a link between the way you are thinking now and the way you're feeling now? Do you see a link between the way you were thinking then, a day, 2 days, 3 days ago, and the way you were feeling then? Okay. So, where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is simple. The way you think affects the way you feel. But you don't know that because you've been thinking like this for at least since you started using your brain. This is how you've been thinking. So what's wrong with it? After all, it has led you this far. Or maybe there are some things you don't like you get up and you're upset and you don't know why you're upset. Or you walk into a room and somebody else walks in and you look at them like this. Look at some shirts that he's wearing. Well, you don't know the person. But it's triggering something for you. And you have to ask yourself, why? Am I thinking this way? Why am I feeling this way? Okay. So, we need to have, we need to define for ourselves what is healthy thinking. And I'm not sure that anyone really knows what is healthy thinking, but I'm going to try. Remember, this is all experimentation on my part. So, is your thinking as close to reality as it should be? Is it as close to reality, or are you thinking the way you want to see your world? So this board, oh, I've stepped on something, okay. So this board is white. The writing is black. But do I want to see it as gray or blue? And so am I seeing it as gray or blue? If I do, and I tell my neighbor, oh, see, she has a blue screen. And then your neighbor will be like, eh? This person, are they seeing things right? So we need to be able to see things as close to reality as possible. Are you processing the data accurately, or are you seeing only what you want to? How do you know? So let's sort of find some healthy thinking. In cognitive behavior therapy, what we do is we've defined unhealthy thinking. And so if you have your phones and you can Google thought distortions, cognitive thought distortions, you will find definitions. So you can do that now, or you can write it. This is really important. Write it. Go on Google and look for cognitive thought distortions. Okay? There will be definitions of, like 10 definitions of errors in thinking. We call it errors in thinking. Not thinking healthily. And don't think that you are exempt from it too. We all here have at least 3 or 4 of those distortions that we do regularly. I'll give you a very easy example of that. So you take a proposal to Stanford Seed, and President Linda takes a look at it and she says to you, oh, this proposal is fine. However, there are problems in the conclusion that you have drawn. So if you just work on the conclusion, I think you'll get an investor. So you take it and you are like, Madam Linda, President's not going to trim. She doesn't, look at what she said about, she doesn't like me. And my whole, that is one way. Another way is like, I'm foolish. I'm so stupid. How could I have written a proposal like that? You know, I can't do anything right. And that sets you back. Doesn't build your confidence, doesn't give you a positive attitude. So we need to know what the errors are so that when we do them, we can knock them out of our heads. From the moment I started studying to be a clinical psychologist, I've been like, I've been healing myself. I've been physician, heal yourself. As soon as I see the negative thought coming, what do? I say, shit, I've seen you. Box you out of my head. But before, it was my truth. Oh, Angie, you got 78% on a test. Most people got 88 and 90% on. You are no good. You have met your matches. They are far ahead of you. You will never catch up. Eh? That's tough. Very rough on ourselves. I will never get that tender. I will never be able to build my business beyond this. You know? I'm no good. These are the messages that we call them automatic thoughts. They come, shoop, they go out of your mind. You don't even know they are there. You've thought them so long. And then you wake up in the morning, you are feeling unhappy. You know, when you say, oh, every fair girl, as soon as I walk past you with my high heels, you're like, look at her, half caste. What's the other word? Mulatto. You know? Meanwhile, I may be like, how can I be of help to you? Let me show you where you're going in the hospital. But now we're not. So, you know, the way we think and the way we feel, really, I mean, the thoughts that come into our minds, if we don't catch them, they really impact our attitudes and they can ruin things for us. Really, really ruin things for us. So, I've put something here. I'll leave the presentation with President, and then she will, if you want it, you can take it from here. Cognitive distortions are negative or irrational patterns of thinking. These negative thought patterns can play a role in diminishing your motivation, lowering your self-esteem, and contributing to problems like anxiety, depression, and substance use. Yes. So these are the different thought distortions which you will read up on, I'm praying. It's on everybody's phone once you type it in. All or nothing thinking, overgeneralization, mental filters, discounting the positive was the example I gave you when somebody tells you good things about you, but you say, oh, she didn't mean it. She was just being nice. You know? That's not me. Somebody says, you are hardworking, you are beautiful. You say, oh, no, I'm not beautiful. You are just seeing it. Jumping to conclusions. This one is the one I do the most. That's why I'm a psychologist, isn't it? Mind reading. So poor Mr. Ofori Atta comes home. He's had a tough day. He walks through the door. He's not smiling at me. He just wants to go wash his hands, sit quietly, because he has been battered at work. The E-levy matter is not working out. And I look at him, I'm like, was it because I was arguing with him yesterday? Is he angry with me? He's angry with me. I better take myself away and go and sit in my corner, and then I won't talk to him. Meanwhile, the man, he's tired, he's got a headache and everything, and instead of me thinking, oh, darling, what's wrong with you? And, just rubbing his head a little. I mean to have taken my decision based on the way I'm thinking, and I've gone and sat my somewhere. Missed opportunity when I could have, done some things. we miss opportunities. We just miss opportunities. So mind reading is a big one. When I give my conversations to marriage, how do you call it? Married couples or the bride and the groom before they marry, I tell them, don't think that you know what your partner is thinking, because you may be so wrong, and you make your decisions based on what you think your partner is thinking. Same in business. Ask your partner, ask your boss, ask your, the people you work with. I see that you're not happy. Is it because, or you don't even need to give them a because. Ask them, why is something, why are you unhappy? What's the problem? Don't jump to conclusions. So you need to read the definitions of mind reading. I can tell you that they changed my life. And it says in the Bible, be renewed by transforming your mind. How can you transform your mind if you are not listening to your mind? If you are not understanding what you are thinking? You need to do that to change your attitudes as well. Yes, sir. Yes. A fortune telling is like, it's a bit like mind reading. It's like predicting the future. So he hasn't come home. He must have had an accident or an affair. He must have had an affair. Yes, jumping to conclusions. Sometimes I'm not very good about separating them, the definitions, but you get it. Or, you put in a proposal and you begin to imagine what the person at the other end is thinking, predicting it. Yes, and usually the worst case scenario. Yes. Yes, let them do their fortune telling. But are we also doing it to ourselves? So this is about us, the way we are thinking. Yes. And you're absolutely right. People are doing, the fortune telling bit. If they were fortune telling positively, we would really say you are being deluded. You think you're going to get that thing. Yeah. And then you start buying, overspending, and then your business goes bankrupt. So that's one other way of thinking about it. So please go and read, and let's be transformed. Let our minds be transformed. I'm going to try and finish in the next 10 minutes because it's about, I know, that time when you are getting into the zone and hitting the wall, So let me try and do that. Or? Okay. All right. So, okay. So, I'm so tempted to define these things, but I will bore you. I want you to read it yourself. And then, but how do you, after you've read the definitions, what do you do? So you know that these are errors in thinking. But the way to be able to kick them out of your mind, I was lucky because I could use it. I use it in my work every day. So I learned it. But the way to be aware yourself is to do a, what we call a thought diary. See, you're bringing out of the dark recesses of your mind into light. your thoughts. And the only way to do it well is to just put it on your phone. I understand now from my young psychologists that there are apps to help you do this. So you young people here, go look for the apps. In fact, I should have looked for them before I came so I could give you links to them. Yeah. So, so you write the day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I like to see how were you feeling at the time, because like I said, it's hard to think, what was I thinking at the time? But as for how you were feeling, there is a marker. I was angry. I was sad. Even happy. You write it. Happy. Then what were you thinking? So that's the next one. What were you thinking when you were feeling that way? What was happening at the time? So that you know the context in which you were in. And then you go and look at the definition. Was that a thought distortion? Was that a thought distortion? Let me go and read the definitions. What would that be? Then you write it down. If you do this, at the end of the day, you just take 2 instances. That's it. You check your thoughts, check the distortion. You do that for like a couple of weeks. Now you are beginning to see them. You are beginning to laugh at the thoughts yourself. Hey. Kwesi Mark came 10 minutes late, and I was just beginning to think, Kwesi Mark, you are late every day. Every day you are late. Meanwhile, Kwesi Mark has been late twice since he started dating you. That's an overgeneralization. You put it right there. Hey, Angela. Oh, no. Constantly overgeneralizing. You have killed it right there. And then you can go further and say to yourself, what other thought could I have had? Just saying, oh, a corrective thought would be, he's late today, but he's generally not late. I can count on my fingers. So that's a challenge to that thought. It's a healthier thought. You know, so we're not saying you have to be positive all the time. Whether the thing is girlfriend leaves you, it's not positive. Boyfriend leaves you, it's not positive. Okay. We're not saying that then you can say, oh, it's good that he went. There was nothing to him. That is called sour grapes. That's not positive thinking. Positive thinking is, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? I miss him. Why am I missing him? He made me laugh. But now he's gone. Okay, this too shall pass. That president, what the president says is true. This too shall pass. You know? Then you are moving forward. And it has passed. Are we not here not wearing masks? Yeah, we are. It has passed. Well, for now. So, building a positive attitude can't do it without the physical. So I'm moving now from the positive, the healthy thinking to the healthy body. Sometimes I have people who are depressed. You don't know what depression is like, but maybe some of you do. When all your thinking is negative about yourself. And we start by saying, go walk. Walk 3 times a week. Walk 5 times a week. If you know how to run, run. If you have steps, climb up and down. Even if you do 5 minutes at a time, build it up to 10, 15. If you don't have physical fitness, the mind doesn't think as well as it should. Yes. 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 And, you know, as we grow older, we cannot move as much, but we have to keep moving because we are made for movement. And the more you slowly build your fitness, the more blood you pump into the brain. You know, when I was in Legon, before my exams, I would exercise. Like in exam week particularly, when I was stressed, I would exercise. And I learned this thing where I put my head, I go on my knees, I put my head down, I put my head like this, I raise my legs above on the wall. It took me a long time to do it, but I did it. I would stay like this, upside down, for the blood to get into my head. And once I got down. I couldn't do anything with an exam paper to me. Because I felt confident that my learning was sharper because of the yourself, you know. So, and if you do this and you realize you don't have the skill you need, or your people don't have the skills that they need, then you bring in someone to teach them. Because then they will feel great about themselves. You know, their value has gone up, and they'll put out more for you. And those small in-service trainings, you can do it so that it doesn't cost you a whole lot. Yes. And rewards. I'll come to rewards in a minute. Accountability. You've talked about accountability partner, so I'm going to keep my slide to myself and move on. I will just say that David may not have had his accountability partner. He had no one he was accountable to. He was king after all. So who is your accountability partner? And celebration. Celebration. What the principle behind celebration is, if a behavior occurs and it is followed by a reward, it will tend to recur. So be careful what you reward. If you reward properly, then, you know, the things that you reward will happen again and again and again. So when you've done a major export, then it's time to have a kinky party for everybody, or a wache party, you know? Everybody comes together and they have that. How much is kinky? You know? Is what? But it fosters camaraderie. It tells them that you appreciate. And the next time an order comes in, they will stay all night to get it done. So you need to celebrate. But for you yourself, do you celebrate? You are building the business, and your mind is always there. How about you? Are you celebrating? You know, Christians, Muslims, you take the white, go to church. When you are going for the communion, and you are going for the, you should put some money into the collection. Please, plenty. When you've done it well, put some in, and then dance, celebrate. Because then your energy is renewed, and you can go forth and do greater exploits. So at this point, this is in Psalm, the takeaways. What are your lessons from David and Bathsheba? 2, how is your thinking? How are you going to, by what yardstick are you going to check if your thinking is positive or not? Is your thinking making you unhappy, spoiling your positive attitude? Are your daily activities in line with your vision? Are your steps in line? Are you rewarding yourself? And who is your board? Who's on your board? Is God or Allah at your board room? Who are you accounting to? At the time when kings go to war, at the time when queens go to war, where will you be found? Thank you.